Hello everyone, good evening. My name is Dr. Ameen. I'm a naturopath and I'm an expert in the field of functional medicine. And this evening we are going to talk about one of the very important topic, that is stress management. I know a lot of us are living in fear given today's COVID situation, and many people are going through this intense amount of stress. And so in this topic today, we're going to talk a lot about stress, what's its mechanism is all about, what is the root cause behind it, and what kind of diet will be helpful for you, and what sort of practices will be excellent, and of course, what form of, the herbs, what herbs will be excellent for that. So that's all the things we are going to talk about it in today's topic. And so before we start with that, we always know that yoga is excellent for managing stress. So I just want to start with something relevant to yoga. So there were these two friends. All right. Naturally, yoga means two girls. So one friend basically is going through a lot of stress, and she has this bad habit of biting the nails. Whenever she goes through a lot of stress, she just bites the nails. So she always want to have like a beautiful nail, but because of the stress, she's constantly biting nails. So she's just asking her friend, what do I do? I'm just going through a lot of stress. So how do I manage it? So she says, why don't you try yoga? Take up yoga, practice yoga regularly, and that will help you to manage your stress. And you may probably, have beautiful nails. So the friend actually took that advice to the heart. So she just went ahead and started doing regular yoga. So they just caught up once again, say in about 6 months time. And then the other friend noticed that this girl has like beautiful nails, very beautiful nails, perfectly beautifully, painted and colored. So the other friend asked, oh, it looks like you have started yoga and yoga really has helped you with managing your stress. Then she's like, well, with stress, I'm not very sure about. It did not exactly help. I still have the same problem, but yoga did help. Well, I don't see it. Your nails are beautiful. So how? Well, I'm more flexible now. So I try to reach out to my toenails instead of my thumbnails. So naturally, she's just biting the toenails. So what is important is to understand the source of the stress, and you handle the stress from the source, and things gets a lot better. So before we go into the stress, you see, it's very important to understand that there are two sides to the stress. There is like good stress, which basically makes you progress in life. There's a bad kind of stress, which basically affects your health. And in natural medicine, there's a concept called hormesis. Okay, what is hormesis? Hormesis is basically to put just enough of pressure. For example, exercise. All right. So what you're doing in exercise, you are carrying the weight that is stressful to the muscle. But then what it does is it actually helps to build the muscle back once again. So a certain amount of stress is very important for us to set goals and grow in life and learn and evolve, which is very important. The stress becomes a problem when it starts to affect your baseline health. All your other foundational functions start to go awry, and as well as you lose your sleep, you lose your health, and that's when the stress becomes an issue. So now when it comes to stress, so there's a saying, it is not the stress that kills, it is our reaction towards it. We need to objectify it. You need to understand what is stress is all about. Okay, now let's see what level stress is in India. As far as there is a study which is called Nimhan study, and it basically says almost about average 13.7% of Indian population suffers from mental illness, which is basically an extreme form of stress. And as well as it's almost about 150 million. 150 million is a lots and lots of people suffering like a chronic psychiatric issues. And as well as according to a 2014 study, almost about 29.8% of Indian adults are suffering from high blood pressure. And knowing high blood pressure is the root cause of heart issues, stroke, and other degenerative disorders, you definitely don't want to have it. So which basically shows how much stress affects everyone. All right. So before we go into the stress, it's already like, I'm sure we all feel it. We always talk about just breathing. Like, everybody says, hey, breathe deep, your stress is going to melt away. Okay, so how does this work and how do we exactly breathe? So let's start by learning how to breathe really deeper. So it's a very, very simple technique to start with. Okay, so you see, somehow God has given us 3 chambers of lungs, all right? Particularly when it comes to your right lung, there's a lower lobe where there's a lot of blood accumulates in the lower part. So if you're breathing through the lower belly, the oxygen transfer rate, the oxygen concentration in the blood improves tremendously. So that's the lower part. When you look at babies, you just lay them on the bed, you only see their stomach moving. They don't expand and puff up their chest, right? So that is called the abdominal breathing, which is very important. The next part is thoracic breathing. Okay, somehow God has put your heart right in the middle of the chest, slightly to the left. So that's why your left lung only has like 2 lobes, only your right lung has like 3 lobes. So the left side, but when you try to breathe through the chest, it basically stresses your heart. Most of us adults, we kind of started to breathe from the chest. Think of someone who is like very angry, they just start to puff up their chest, and that kind of stresses the heart, and that's primarily what is happening in today's world. All right. And the third part, which is never explored, is basically your clavicle or the shoulder breathing. That is the apices of your lungs, which is in the top part of your lungs. You also will have to utilize this part of your lungs. You see, the quantity of air, how much we breathe, is basically what happens is your lung capacity is around 5 liters. Air is usually measured in liters. But now what happens is an average breathing, average normal shallow breathing, what we take on day-to-day basis, guess how much of air we take? It's about 10% of that. It's half a liter. It's hardly anything. And that's primarily the problem. When you have so much of lung capacity, we use bare minimum of it, which is only about 10%. And the worst thing is the air we use our middle lobe to breathe. Like, we human beings feel that it is not nice to utilize your stomach to breathe. Your belly cannot bulge out. Everyone is so sensitive about it. When that happens, naturally there's a lot of stress building up and there is very low levels of oxygen in the blood and it kind of very degenerative in nature. So think of it, like think of a cup. When you fill the water, what happens? It fills the lower part of the cup and the middle part and the upper part. The same way. So I want you to place your right hand on your belly, your left hand on your chest like this. So when you look at it, it is here and here. So when you start to breathe, first breathe out fully, once you breathe out, when you're trying to breathe in, always breathe through the nose. When you breathe in, you try to breathe and feel your stomach expanding first. That kind of fills your stomach. Once it is filled, then you try to expand your chest. Then once artificially try to push your shoulders up. So that is the way you try to fill up so much oxygen in your lungs. And when you breathe out, you drop your shoulders, you drop your chest, and you let your stomach settle in. So when you start to breathe this way, all it takes is about 5 set of breathings. Now what happens is there's a nerve called vagal nerve. The vagal nerve it carries a lot of information from your gut all the way to the brain. Now in this case, if when you're breathing from the chest, it's like you are in a very stressful situation. Your brain feels like there is something chasing you. There's a lion chasing you. So it's like pulse rate goes up and you are in flight mode. But when you use your belly and breathe so deep, you can't be angry and breathe deeper. You try that. When you are upset and you try to breathe deeper, and you start to feel a lot more calmer and serene. So it's very essential to utilize this breathing. Visualize that there's a cup inside. You're trying to fill that in when you inhale. And when you exhale, feel like you're emptying the cup. Or you visualize a balloon, empty balloon inside your stomach. And when you inhale, you feel like you are just inflating the balloon, which just expands. And when you exhale, feel the balloon emptying it. So the minute you do that, you will notice stress is no more an issue. So just something to take home and practice it. It makes a world of difference. Now, moving on to the next. Before we go into the stress, we need to learn about our friend. There's a very, very important hormone called cortisol. Cortisol is a stress hormone. Whenever you are stressed, it's a fight or flight hormone. Of course, there is adrenaline, cortisol, noradrenaline, epinephrine. There are a lot of different things, but let's just talk about cortisol. Cortisol goes up whenever you are stressed, and it is very important. I mean, cortisol basically governs your hunger, your digestion, your blood pressure, your sleep and wake cycle. There are a lot of factors that are being covered. Like there is something called day-night cortisol rhythm. Like in the morning, your cortisol goes up. That's where you just open up and you become alert and you have enough energy for the whole day. In the night time, the cortisol usually goes down, and that's when and the melatonin goes out. So that's when you feel a lot more like calm, serene, relaxed, and you're ready for sleep. You start to yawn, right? In many cases, what happens is cortisol is very important. Cortisol is not the enemy. Excessive cortisol is the enemy. All right. So it also increases sugar level in your blood. Your cortisol is the primary reason. Like sometimes, mostly diabetics, they would have realized that if they don't sleep well, the next day morning when they check their sugar level, it just like shoots up really high because the cortisol is extremely high. One of the reasons. And particularly, whenever you are stressed, when the cortisol level is very high, almost about 39% of the people tend to overeat, and 29% of the people tend to skip the meals. Like they don't know what to eat, what not to eat, they skip the meal. And there is like 44% of the people, they don't sleep well. They like lie down on the bed. It might have happened, something very stressful, anxious happens, and the whole night you lie down, you cannot sleep. This also happens purely because of the excessive cortisol. So it is very essential to keep this cortisol level under very low. All right. And there's also a saying, I think Dr. Mark Hyman, he says about 95% of all the diseases are either primarily caused by stress or influenced by stress. Okay. And also they say American Institute of Stress, it basically says that almost about 75 to 90% of the visits to the doctors in primary care centers is primarily stress associated, which is very important. When you think about it, it's primarily like we are bombarded by the stress. And so the other important element about cortisol is that as we age, the cortisol level also keeps on going up. All right. At like 50 years old, your cortisol will be actually 20% higher comparing to a 20-year-old. And a high cortisol level, think of someone like who is always angry and upset about something. Do they ever look younger than their actual age? Never. They always look much older. There's a lot of wrinkling and damage because by excessively getting stressed, by excessively getting worried, you actually start to age much, much faster. There's a lot of degeneration going on in your body. All right. And usually high cortisol also lead to very high blood pressure. There's a lot of other degenerative changes also happens. So it's very important to notice that. For example, okay, when it comes to stress, particularly cortisol, there are two types. One, basically the cortisol levels are like very high. When the cortisol levels goes very high, it usually have very high level of sugar. They also have like metabolic syndrome, which is usually including high blood pressure and high triglycerides in your blood. You can actually check with your doctor and they would be able to let you know. And a very low level of good cholesterol. We call it HDL, high density lipoprotein. The good cholesterol will be very low. And then they usually have this flabby layer of fat, which is below the navel. It just hangs very, very loose. And when your cortisol levels are very high, you will always have very weak legs. Like when you climb the stairs, the knees start to hurt very easily. And these are the people where the legs and hands are very weak, but the midsection start to expand. And you will have like very droopy face, or women will have like very round face, moon face kind of situation. And there's always a pad of fat behind the neck, this upper back area. All right. So all these are typical indication of you're going through just too much of stress. And they will have like very poor memory and a very high fasting sugar level. And when they get hurt, the wound doesn't heal that fast. The wound healing is like very, very slow. And particularly women, they will have a lot of hormonal related issues, long duration of bleeding, and the cycles become very disrupted, and their moods are like constantly swinging. And most importantly, sleep related issues, bone loss. Those who are elderly, when they're worried too much, they lose their bones, which is very, very important to also be very cautious about. All right. So, there's a group of disease called psychosomatic disorder. Okay. Psychosomatic disorder. What is psychosomatic disorder? Psycho means mind, somatic means body. We create a manifestation of disease in the body because of our mind. Nowadays, almost all the diseases are related to the mind. So these are the group of disease called psychosomatic disorder, right from high blood pressure to heart problem to gastritis to digestive issues to immune system. Mentioning immune system, very important. In today, right now, protecting your immune system is very important. And know this, the minute you start to worry about something and stressed about something, your immune system drops by 50% for next 8 hours. And I know so many people who worry constantly. And think what happens when you're so worried about. When your immune system is so low in today's situation with all the COVID going around, you become a victim. So it's very, very important not to worry and optimize your immune system, which is also one of the important factor to think about. And the other thing is like stress affects every aspect, right from your sugar readings, your heart function, your brain function slows down, your skin start to age, and you have a lot of joint related issues. You start to lose the muscle, you get a lot of digestive issues. Some people, when they are stressed, they constipate. Some people develop diarrhea. And think like stress also affects the heart. Make an assumption. Do you know when people get the most number of heart attacks in a week? We have weeks from Sunday to Monday, right? I mean, Sunday to Saturday, right? So guess when is the time the most heart attack happens? It's always on Monday mornings. Why? After a long weekend, people are so stressed about going back to their work. And the work atmosphere today is so stressful that people just hate to go there. And that's the time people get so many heart attacks. So it is very vital to learn the basic skills of managing stress, so it becomes very vital. So now, all these symptoms, it just comes back to you. Are you stressed? That's a primary question. Most people, I have seen people where they're like exhausted, they are tired and they're losing the muscle and their belly is like huge and they are just exhausted. Are you stressed? No. Why? People are so get used to it. Work stress, people are getting so used to it and they don't realize it. And when it comes to stress, there are two types of stress. One is external. External is there are factors influencing from outside to in. And the other one is internal. Like think if you have like very sick, you don't have any exercise, you don't have nothing, you are very obese, you cannot walk. This is also a form of stress which you create internally. So there's an internal stress. So I personally feel in today's case, everybody must learn how to manage their stress. So when it comes to managing stress, there are few things. Of course, we talked about breathing. Of course, I can teach you certain few simple breathing exercise, but please go and find a proper yoga teachers and try to learn a proper breathing techniques. It's very, very essential. All right, especially you are in India, the land of yoga. It is very, very vital to learn all the basic foundational concepts of yoga, breathing. We call it pranayama. What is pranayama? Prana is your breath. Ayama means control. So control of the breath, very important. All right. And the other thing is exercising. When you exercise, your ability to manage stress improves tremendously because your body can cope with cortisol. Because when you exercise, the cortisol goes up, which means your body over time get used to that amount of cortisol, so you don't suffer so much. The people who don't exercise are the ones have the most amount of anxiety and panic attacks. So it's very important to exercise. The third part is visualization. Close your eyes and visualize that you're full of light, positivity, positive energy. I had people who walk, they say peace and joy, peace and joy. Like when they place the right foot to the front, they say peace within their mind. And then when they put the left leg to the front, they say joy. So peace and joy, peace and joy, peace and joy. It may sound like very funny, but over time when you keep repeating these kind of words, we call it affirmations. What happens is you become the words you're just, repetitively telling yourself. So now what happens is the peace and joy becomes your core. And you feel so solid, like nothing can rock you. That's another one what you can think. And of course, spread positivity. Like pray for others and spread positivity, which is very, very important. So, in every religion, the other thing is chanting. In every religion, if you are Hindus, chant Om repetitively. If you're a Muslim, there is Ameen. Say that. If you're a Christian, say Amen. If absolutely don't want to be religious about anything, just say peace. Shanti is nothing but peace. So Shanti, just say whichever word is suitable for you, whichever connects to your heart. Say that. The more and more you say it, the cortisol level basically drops down. And stretching the muscle, doing a deep level of yoga, stretching a muscle becomes very important, particularly for cortisol. The yoga postures where it involves inversions like head stand, shoulder stand. There is a yoga pose called the downward dog. Learn these yoga postures. Just do very simple basic yoga posture. They are phenomenal in lowering your stress hormones. They are excellent. And as well as, everyone loves Shavasana, which is just lying down and relaxing and letting your mind run through the whole body and relaxing. It's fantastic. And today I realized there is another factor that affects the level of stress is basically the EMF, electromagnetic frequency. Nowadays, we are communicating through the smartphone, but instead of helping us, like sometimes just overusage of all this technology basically start to harm us. And it is also known, like those people who use too much of phones, too much of smartphone, their cortisol level tend to go up. And as well as it causes a lot of sleep disturbances nowadays among youngsters, and it also lowers the body's immunity, which is also very well connected. And there's a sudden elevation in a lot of autoimmune disorder, which is also connected to excessive exposure to electromagnetic frequencies. So all this is also directly related to aging and degeneration. So nowadays you might have heard about a technique called grounding. So grounding is nothing but just walk barefooted on a grassland, like a nice green patch. Have you ever tried that? So what it does is, it basically connects your foot to the ground. It removes all the negative ions out of your body, just clears up all this, like electromagnetic negative load on your system. So when you let go, you feel so relieved. So whenever it gives an opportunity, feel like a child. Run around on grass with barefooted. It's a fantastic technique to heal yourself. Now, other than that, I can think of, okay, let's go into herbs. I think that's very essential, part of it. I use one of this amazing herbs. So it's basically called Ashwagandha. I take this on regular basis. Ashwagandha, as the name suggests, Ashwagandha actually means horse smell. So, this herb particularly smells like a horse, but don't let that put you off. Actually, the Sanskrit, the botanical name is Withania somnifera. Somnifera actually means sleep inducing. It is one of the fantastic herbs. When it comes to herbal medicine, we use something called adaptogenic herbs. The herbs help you to adapt to the stressful situation. All right, it really helps you to manage and cope with stress. So this adaptogenic herbs, what can I say? Like Ashwagandha is one of the adaptogenic herb. Tulsi, holy basil, is a fantastic adaptogenic herb. And likewise, we also have Brahmi, another adaptogenic herb. So many. So these herbs helps your body to manage. Okay, usually what happens is, like, how adaptogenic works. Think about this. Your normal blood pressure is about 120/80, right? When you're constantly exposing your body to high level of stress, the blood pressure keeps going up higher and higher and higher and higher, to a point where your blood pressure naturally start to adjust to a higher level. So suddenly your blood pressure becomes like 140/90 or 140/100, and your blood pressure start to stabilize at that particular point. Now, that is your body's inability to cope. So your body is trying to adapt at the higher level. But when you take the adaptogenic herbs, it basically keeps the stress in your head, but it doesn't allow your body to get affected by the stress. So your blood pressure basically start to stabilize once again back at its static level, which is 120/80. So this is what the adaptogenic herbs does. And when it comes to Ashwagandha, it's a fantastic herb. So it also helps. As I told, it is sleep inducing. Somnifera means sleep inducing. So it's fantastic for sleep, rejuvenation. It balances the hormone level, particularly for men. It improves the testosterone levels. It's fantastic for digestive related issues. And what else I can think of? Dementia, memory. It also boosts body's immunity. It is one of the herbs I think everyone should be taking it to optimize their body's immune system. I know there are a lot of questions coming in between. So towards the end of this session, I will answer some of the queries so that all your questions will be answered. So it'll be easier without disruption. And so Ashwagandha, back to Ashwagandha. Ashwagandha is primarily connected to three things, which is one is vitality, the other one is improving your overall vigor and your ability to manage and cope with stress. So this is very vital. And so Ashwagandha, it has one thing, very powerful anti-inflammatory effect. It's just a very powerful anti-inflammatory. Sometimes it is, I think the last session we actually talked about joint health. We also mentioned about Ashwagandha because you can just take Ashwagandha for any kind of muscle aches and pains. Sometimes with stress, we have a lot of tightness around the muscles. It helps to release that. It is also a very powerful antioxidant, which is very important to protect you from aging because of the stress related issues. And the last one is basically it's a fantastic adaptogenic, helps your body to adapt to all the stress. So having said that, the second most vital herb is basically Brahmi. So Brahmi, as the name suggests, Brahma, it's a fantastic herb for improving your brain function. So it is very specific for the brain because it helps to improve your memory power, and as well as it actually improves your focus, attention, and it's also very good for any kind of swelling, particularly a lot of water retention. It also helps with that, and especially people with depression, digestive issues, they can take this on regular basis. And nowadays the kids, they're suffering a lot of condition called attention deficit hyperactive disorder, ADHD. So common because the kids are not allowed to play in the ground, they're not allowed to go open. With all the lockdown, kids are literally stuck in homes and they become very aggressive. So if they take Brahmi, it's a fantastic herb. It kind of helps them to calm down, improves their focus, improves their memory. It's phenomenal. It's also Brahmi, we also use it a lot with sleep related disorders and those who have neurological disease like stroke, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's. So when they take Brahmi, their nerves start to regenerate, and particularly those who feel like you can do better with a little bit of better memory, take Brahmi. It's fantastic for that. And other than that, naturally, the next herb is basically Tulsi. I can show you the Brahmi. So I also have this Brahmi. So this is something I regularly give to my kids as well, just for their memory. We can just manage them better with Brahmi. The other one I do is a lot of Tulsi. First of all, Organic India based on Tulsi because of the purpose that it's a queen of all the herbs. In certain literature, it's also called the king of all the herbs. And Tulsi, it's a powerful antioxidant, just like Ashwagandha. It's a very, very good antifungal, anti-inflammatory, antibacterial. So you can basically take it as an immune booster, as an adaptogen. And the good thing, one great thing about Tulsi is that whenever you take Tulsi with some other herb, the Tulsi basically improves the absorption rate and as well as efficacy of the other herb you combine it along with. So it's a fantastic herb to take on regular basis as well. And along with this combination, I'm going to recommend, I think Organic India has this particular tea called Tulsi Sleep, which is a very, very good combination. So they have this, in this particular tea, they have this Tulsi, Gotu-kola, Ashwagandha, Shankapushpi. These are all the adaptogenic herbs. And it's delicious. When you try that, it's really delicious. So it actually helps with, managing. It also helps with sleep disorders, helps you to calm down. And particularly if you have a very stressful meeting and whatnot, you just do that and drink that. It helps you to stabilize that. So it's also fantastic for that. And okay, so other than that, the very most important thing, I just want to teach you just one more technique before we go. In yoga, we have a technique called Sitali. Okay, so Sitali actually means cooling breath. So cooling breath, so try this. You try to roll your tongue like this. It's so we are trying to roll the tongue this way, and you feel as though you're drinking the air through the straw. It's when you try that, you will feel the throat will start to cool down. You can feel the cool air entering your lungs. Make sure you live in an area where the air is not so badly polluted. Otherwise, it can create a cough. I know some of you all cannot roll the tongue like that. If you can't roll your tongue, you just bite your teeth. There's a name for it. It's called Shitkari. It looks like about 20% of the people cannot roll their tongue. The tongue is a bit thicker. So you can just try this. But breathe out through the nose. So you can just try that. You are in an office where it's very stressful and you feel like you need a quick technique just to help you. You are in a situation where you feel like agitated, you know that the anxiety is coming up to the chest. You just roll your tongue and you just do about exactly 3 times. Before you go to the 4th breath, you'll already feel like everything stabilizes and you have the control back again. All right, so it's called Sitali, Sitkari. That's a Sitali. The rolling tongue breath is called Sitali, Sitali. So this is a fantastic technique. Once again, it's like just practice this. It's a very quick technique. It works every time. It doesn't matter whether you're a good person, bad person, it always works. It's fantastic. So do that. It just works amazingly. And so with that technique, let's rather go into, okay, the other part. If you feel like you are going through too much of stress, too much of stress, there's a lot of tightness in the muscle everywhere. So what you can also do is you can basically use massage oils, like use a lot of like Ashwagandha based massage oils. You can use that to like release a lot of tightness and tension. And if there's a good massage places, either it is Ayurveda, deep tissue, energy balancing massages, go. It is vital to treat your body once in a while. Just go and do a massages. Make sure it is very authentic, good quality massages. If not, just use a very good massage oils, apply it all over the body, and specifically wherever there is tightness, apply that. It kind of helps you to get relief from all the tightness and aches and pains, which is very important. Now let's see if we can actually take some of the questions. Okay, so particularly when it comes to sleep, like when it comes to sleep, in order for you to fall asleep, you need something called melatonin. Your blood level of melatonin should go up. Sometimes when we are chronically stressed, what happens is, it's called the second wave. Towards the evening, the stress hormone goes up once again, where you feel sleepy, but you cannot fall asleep. Now what happens is, because of your cortisol levels are very high, I'm going to tell you something which is counterproductive. Generally, we think that we shouldn't eat a lot of carbohydrates in the night, but you might have heard about people, if I don't rise, I cannot sleep. And do you know what? Science say the same thing. If you eat some carbohydrate in the night, your melatonin level goes up, your stress hormone goes down. So if you cannot really sleep, practice eating, I'm not saying white rice, eat like brown rice, healthy carbohydrates like quinoa, the millets. Eat those kind of stuff in the night. Then that will actually help to deepen your sleep. Second, make sure you don't look into bright blue color screen, your phones particularly after like 8 o'clock. Turn it off, and instead read a book, which also helps. Third, you want to look for something called magnesium. Magnesium is a fantastic relaxant, especially you want to look for magnesium citrate or magnesium glycinate, about 500 milligram in the night after your dinner. That will actually help to improve your sleep quality a lot better. The other thing you can do is you can look for something called Epsom salt. It's called magnesium sulfate. In most pharmacies you can basically find it. So take about 2 tablespoons of Epsom salt in a bucket of warm water, soak your foot in it, and that can improve your sleep quality tremendously. So that also is very good for that. And despite this, if you cannot really sleep, you definitely need the medical help. So make sure you just seek the medical help beyond that point. There's the next question. Does Netflix help you relax and manage stress? Depending on what you watch in Netflix, so if you're watching like very aggressive or too emotional of a drama, naturally your stress hormone level goes up, and that's not going to help you to relax. So naturally it depends on what you're watching. If you're watching something very soothing, calming, relaxing, and a bit of a laughable elements, that can actually help you to sleep better. And the third question is stress managing activities which can be done in the office. I think we actually talked about the rolling tongue breath, which works every time. So just try that, because I think that's the easiest to teach in this particular medium. The other techniques are a little bit more complicated, but doesn't mean you just stop at this level. All right, like go and learn further, which is very vital. And then sleeping related issues. When it comes to sleeping related issues, I think we have a few issues. Okay, one thing, difficulty falling asleep. Okay, we already talked a lot about that. If you do all that, you will fall asleep. The second thing is like disrupted sleep. Okay, disrupted sleep, there are few reasons. When you're hyper alert, when you're very anxious, you tend to get up very frequently. In that case, start using a lot of these adaptogenic herbs like Ashwagandha, Amla, and you can also use Brahmi. So these are all the herbs you have to take on regular basis in order to improve your body's ability to cope. And then there is one other herb I forgot to mention, which is basically called Liquorice. Okay, we call it Adi Maduram Mulati. This is also one of the fantastic herbs because you see, the organ which produces the stress hormone, which is basically adrenal glands. You would have seen like one small tiny triangular gland on top of your kidneys. So this particular organ is vital for managing your stress, and this organ can become weak over time, particularly if you don't take, like, vitamin C is very important for a health of adrenal glands. So taking amlaki regularly improves your adrenal function, which will help with the sleep, which will help with managing stress, which will help with your vitality and strength. So very vital. Use a lot of lemon, oranges, so these are all one of the fantastic herbs what you can take on regular basis. And so there are other questions like the next question is like drinking and smoking. Is it all right for stress? No. You're looking the wrong way of managing stress. A lot of people rely on alcohol and smoking and overeating, binging. All right. So these are all the wrong way of managing stress, because like there is stress, and if you don't take the positive initiative towards learning some skills to manage your stress, this is what happens. You will never just close your eyes and drive a car, right? It tends to always cause an accident. The same way, when you're facing a lot of stress, seek help. When you learn the right techniques, when you start practicing it, you can definitely get out of that. So that becomes very vital. And the next question is, sometimes even when we don't have sleep, we feel still fresh, but sometimes we feel like mind and body is not good. Why? The thing is, you see, it's about how much of sleep quality. Like certain people, they have very high level of cortisol during the daytime. So although you didn't sleep well, in the morning you tend to feel fresh, because feeling fresh is directly connected to cortisol. In the initial times, yeah, you can manage with a very high level of cortisol, but over time what happens is the cortisol will wear you down, and eventually you will succumb to exhaustion. It depends on at what age you are starting and at how long you just go in that full pace, which is very, very vital. I don't think any one of us should push ourselves too much without getting enough of sleep. And the question is, how many hours of sleep is the right amount of sleep? And somebody may say, 4 hours is enough for me. There's no such thing. If you're a human being, you need about 7 to 8 hours of sleep. According to the International Sleep Association, they just say like 7 to 8 hours of sleep is very vital and the basic requirement. So just make sure that you get enough of sleep. And the other thing is basically ashwagandha, like some of these herbs. You see, when it comes to the next question is, how long can I take these herbs you are mentioning? Okay, number one, I would say most adaptogenic herbs are very safe to take on long term, because they basically are nourishing herbs. They are basically like something of a basic spice which you will use otherwise in your kitchen, in the home. So generally they are considered super safe. So it is all right to take for a lifetime. Just in case, if you're very concerned about, they are super safe to go until about 3 months. You can go for that and you can switch. For example, what I do, I take ashwagandha for like 3 months. I switch to Brahmi for next 3 months. I switch back to ashwagandha for 3 months. So there's like all this switching basically helps, just in case, if your body has like a strong reaction or anything like that. So over the period of time, nothing happens. But generally these herbs are considered very, very organic, gentle, simple, very clean and individual herbs. So they are generally super safe to take. All right. So now, when it comes to managing stress, so I think that's enough of questions. So when it comes to managing stress, so there is one saying, like, our Mahatma Gandhiji says, there is more to life than increasing its speed. We all are so much focused on increasing speed, we just don't enjoy the overall journey. We are just moving from one to other. So focus on the journey itself. Don't forget to see the view. And I wish you all a stress-free, happy, optimal, functional life. Thank you so much for attending the session. Thank you and namaste.